Okay, so this is part 6 and the final part of my series, Jatan's Good Friday Prophecy. And that girl there is actually the first child that was unknown to me who I felt a close connection with. Like a spiritual connection through empathy. I'd call it an empathic soul connection, maybe. And that is Ebony Simpson. And her mum actually lives just 50, not even 50 k's from me. In a straight line, it's probably 40 k's away. So yeah, I actually, when I first read about Ebony, it was going back when I was still in the closet. Actually, I hadn't told anyone I was gay back then, and like I was saying in my last video, it really was a difficult time coming out, because this is going back a little bit of time now. I've added the word good here above brat. Good brat, Jake. And just to prove it, how good I am, I have fixed my typo. I'm turning 41 on Thursday 27th of April 2017. So it will be 14 years since my 27th birthday on 27th of April 2003. That was a pretty rough year for me, as I had recently come out of the closet, or I was in the process of about to come out, actually, at the start of 2003. And yeah, it was actually in early 2004, I think, when I admitted to my family and friends that I was same-sex attracted, gay. And this is where I was up to. Coming out was a pretty big deal. And it wasn't just because of homophobia, I don't think, although that was the worst of it. It was a pretty big deal for me back in 2003 or 2004, and maybe it wasn't just because of the disgusting homophobia that I had to battle against, and it was disgusting. Just to try and keep breathing, it might also have had something to do with the closeted predator, who I've always called the Aquarium Man, and that was the stranger who approached me at Western Park in Canberra. And that was after I wandered away from an end-of-year school picnic in December 1989. Yeah, it was actually me and some other kids went for a walk, and this guy just drove his car up to where we were standing, and I was the only one stupid enough to stay and chat to him. I was too trusting then, like I have been most of my life, and I've been torn apart by a lot of people, not just him. So, lad is 17, and that is Jake's date of birth. I don't mean to complain though, because, like, you know, Jake was murdered. Lad equals 17. God equals 26. I don't really believe in God, because too many people that do are just not very nice people. I know there are some really nice people who believe in God, but I think I've just met too many of the bad ones to be able to look. And I look at the world and I just think, come on. If there is a God, it's nothing like the way God is depicted, or it's nothing like the Bible. Nothing like that at all. Friday, 17th of February 2017, which was Jake's 39th birthday, plus 129 days equals Monday, 26th of June 2017. So, a bit of a God thing happening there, maybe. Aquarium Man equals 129. That's the significance of this number. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have bothered with that one. The February birthday boy's Easter symbol was the junk cord. Flogging a demon aquarium man. Christian man. Actually, that'd be the opposite of reality, wouldn't it? Jacob's painful countdown of Nathan and Jacob is Christian. I'm the cross, wicked cross. Cross Satan, Satan Joshua. Psychic Jatan. And of course this is Jatan's prophecy, so Psychic Jatan definitely belongs, I guess. 12 plus 9 equals 21, which is the date of Josh's birthday, the Aussie kid Josh, and the solar eclipse in America. Be dead equals 21, which is 14 plus 7. And my name actually has a value of 147, so there you go. Good Friday, 14th of April 2017, and it's not kindly chance, by the way. That's just my YouTube name. Good Friday, 14th of April 2017, plus 129 days equals, as I said, the date of the total solar eclipse right across the middle of the United States. And it is Josh's birthday that day in Australia. So is his birthday on this solar eclipse? Yes, it is. The last 3 hours of his birthday will be the first 3 hours of the solar eclipse, I do believe. Or thereabouts. Yeah, I might. While I read the next part, I'll put some photos on. Might be a bit more interesting for you. So, yeah, put on slideshow. The man who abducted and murdered Jacob Wetterling was not openly gay, or openly kinky, or honest about his sexuality. He had himself been a victim of sexual abuse at the hands of a predatory pedophile back when he was a boy himself during the late 70s. Those were still, or I'd estimate the late 70s. Those were still the dark old days when it was extremely difficult for a same-sex attracted boy to be open or get meaningful help if they had mental problems. They were basically on their own, and some sexual abuse victims who did not commit suicide went on to become offenders themselves. Most do not. I kept it all inside too, so I know how almost impossible. Coming out was almost impossible for me. I actually don't know. It was literally like trying to break through a physical barrier. It was almost like, yeah, trying to break through something that you can't break through. And I actually fainted when I told the very first person, apart from my mum. I blacked out. That's how hard it gets. But with me, I think there's more to it because of what happened. So, yeah, I know myself. Victims were basically on their own, and some sexual abuse victims who did not commit suicide, and an awful lot did, some of them went on to become predators. Daniel James Heinrich actually went by the name Danny Heinrich, and although he was responsible for a spate of abductions and sexual assaults on boys aged around 11 to 13, before he abducted Jacob, he let all the other boys go, and he never offended again after he murdered Jacob. This is considered highly unusual, and nobody knows why he stopped when he did. It points to him not actually being a psychopath, because a psychopath simply would not stop. Unless Jake something happened, something weird happened that scared him so bad, maybe. Who knows? But he stopped. When the FBI executed a search warrant on Danny Heinrich's house in 2016, it was 31st of August, actually, 2016, they found nothing linking him to Jacob Wetterling. Sorry, it wasn't August, it was a bit before that. 3 months before that. Yeah, it was July, it must have been something like July, I don't know. But it was 2016. They found nothing linking him to Jacob, but they did find a stash of child pornography and a large photo of Adolf Hitler and Heinrich Himmler. He was the architect of the Nazi Holocaust. They found maps of the St. Cloud and Painesville areas. St. Cloud was not too far from St. Joseph, where Jacob came from. The police who executed the raid also found a prayer book that was bookmarked with at a page with "Call down pardon for our wickedness, and obtain for us the gifts of your grace." A page was ripped from a Christian Bible, and it read, "Give me the light to know my sins, true sorrow for them, and a firm purpose of never committing them again. St. Joseph, pray for me." Now, that's ironic because St. Joseph is the name of Jacob's hometown, where he grew up. If you're wondering why I've put a photo of Tony Abbott, it's because hearing him today almost boasting with delight about the fact that the Safe Schools program has been abolished in New South Wales, as if it's a credit to him somehow, just made me sick. His opposition to same-sex marriage makes me sick. His own sister's gay, for God's sake. And to put some kind of weird religious belief that you have the right to discriminate ahead of your own family, mate, that is sick. That's not freedom of religion. That's just really sick. There can be no doubting that Danny Heinrich is a seriously disturbed man, a pedophile, and a sexual predator. I would also describe Jacob's murderer as being a closeted neo-Nazi Christian. Predatory people are rarely open or honest about their sexuality, and true sadism, the bad type of sadism, is usually hidden within a culture of denial, self-repression, and secrecy. And discriminatory laws, just keeps that old culture there, doesn't it? Or it helps to. Australia's not real good in that regard. There's a lot of homophobia here, I can tell you. Now, I believe Jake has strangely similar interests, but the exact opposite personality and mentality of his killer. Empathy inspires generosity, and being honest about one's sexuality, especially if you're a bit different, if you're gay or kinky or something like that, it's an unselfish act, to be honest. It's an act of self-sacrifice. It's actually a very Christian thing to do in the true meaning of Christianity, not the bullshit version that so many so-called conservative Christians in Australia. So an unselfish act of self-sacrifice. This is what would have defined Jacob had he lived, I reckon. He would not have been defined by social stigma, guilt, or shame to do with his sexuality. And that's how he's helped me. Empathic love is the pivotal similarity or likeness the pivotal thing that links me to Jacob, and Jacob to 13-year-old Nathan Breeze, whose suffering as he died almost certainly had more to do with the suffering of others than his own physical discomfort, torment and pain. The firestorm in which Nathan perished on Black Saturday 7th of February 2009 also killed his 5-year-old sister, Tegan, his 16-year-old sister, Crystal, and his mother, along with 5 other people who all perished in the same room of the house they were trying to shelter in. The fast-moving and ferocious firestorm was exactly like what hell is depicted as being. Just a lake of flames devouring everything, including people, animals, everything. Unsurvivable. Bushfires, of course, are completely natural in Australia and have been for millions of years, but it's a scary fact that megafires are becoming more frequent with global warming, and this is just one reason why I personally could never be a climate change denier. I genuinely regard willful climate change denial as being among the sickest common forms of uncool behaviour that many people indulge in, many of whom call themselves Christian conservatives, especially in Australia and America. It's sick. It really is. And they think homosexuals are sick. They are the biggest killers of people, potentially, ever. Yeah. That, by the way, is Ralph's death certificate. Or death certificate. The boy Ralph Morris, who I have talked about in this little series I've done. See, he was a real kid, and that is his actual death certificate. They used to handwrite them back in those days. Death on 8th of February. Ralph Morris, described as an infant. He was 9 years old. And if you look at, it has got the cause of death. It takes a bit of reading. It took me ages to figure out what this says, but cause of death is sloughing, dehydration, exhaustion, it says there. I think. But that's, that's his actual death certificate of Ralph Morris. So 2.5 months after the event, after the fire in which he was burnt. That's where it says. I think it might say infection. Causes of death. Definitely says burns, sloughing and exhaustion. Duration of, so 2.5 months after he was burnt. Sorry, bad angle. And his boss deliberately set his bed on fire, so pretty unkind behaviour from someone who called themselves a Christian. A bad boy. A bad boy equals 50. It's funny, some of the people who act like they're all good actually aren't. And some people who are good put on the image of being bad on the outside. Nazi Jacob's snake. Maybe that's meant to say Jacob's Nazi snake? I don't know. Well, maybe Jake's got a German fetish or something. Friday, 17th of February 2017, which was Jake's 39th birthday, plus 50 days, lands you on Saturday the 8th of April 2017. On Saturday the 8th of April 2017, the body of a missing man, David Heidemann, was found as floodwaters from tropical cyclone Debbie continued to recede. Boy's flood, victim named David Heidemann. Jacob was 11, Nathan was 13. And if you add 13 and 11, you get the value of kid, which is 24. Was Jacob Wedling's murderer really a Christian? Because he had a prayer book and a Bible? How many people who call themselves Christians are control freak bullies who just like having power and authority over others? How many people have been forced to live in the shadows of bad and deceptive Christians and Muslims and Hindus whose shallow morals, in some cases, do nothing to diminish the monstrous cruelty they inflict upon others, often with deadly consequences? The attitude and actions of Christopher William Crawley 129 years ago were fairly typical for a callous and cruel Christian hypocrite. Now, I've already said I don't have a problem with all Christians. In fact, I would say there's about a third of Christians who I think are pretty nice people. But after spending some time on social media and seeing the stuff that gets posted in Christian forums, there are some really, really nasty people who are very religious. Christopher Crawley set fire to the straw bed of his 9-year-old stable hand and servant boy, Ralph Morris, as the young boy lay sick one morning towards the end of 1898. It would have been better... Put the photos back on. Since the light's not that great anyway. That should work. So yeah, Christopher Crawley set fire to the straw bed of his 9-year-old stable hand and servant boy, Ralph Morris, as he lay sick in bed one morning towards the end of 1898. It would have been better for that poor kid had he not been pulled from the resulting inferno, raging inferno, which destroyed the stables. The damage had been done to Ralph's skin and lungs, but not enough damage to prevent him from lingering on in utter misery for another 10 weeks until his eventual death. Hard to imagine how he would have suffered. Ralph's death certificate states that he died from exhaustion and sloughing. Treatment for severe burns victims was primitive in 1898. Ralph's murderer, Christopher Crawley, who was not a Satanist, but a Catholic, and so was Ralph, denied all responsibility for the 10 weeks of hellish misery that Ralph then had to endure, and that's Christopher Crawley right there, before he finally died in his parents' shack on the Illabo Road just south of Junee. Just out of Junee. The stable fire was described to the police as an unfortunate accident. In fact, Ralph's parents were told they'd have a bucket of cold water tipped over them if they said otherwise, which was had more meaning to it than just a bucket of cold water, I can assure you. After Ralph died, there was no funeral for him at the local St. Joseph's Catholic Church, despite Ralph and his parents being Catholics. There was no priest present when Ralph was buried at the Junee Cemetery, and that was on Thursday, the 9th of February, 1899. It's kind of freaky, actually, because Ralph actually died on the 9th of February, aged 9 years and almost exactly 9 months. And he died 99 days before what would have been his 10th birthday. And Nathan Breeze was one of 9 people who died at number 9 Pine Ridge Road in Kinglake West. So maybe some kind of connection between Ralph and Nathan. So no priest when he was buried. The town just pretended it never happened. You can't imagine Ralph's parents, can you? Yeah. This is the reality. This is what you don't hear about society, what it can do. The monstrous things society is capable of doing are just mind-blowing. People are not always nice, not at all. And that's why when you decide to come out and be honest about something like the fact that you're gay, let alone kinky, I mean that's just because people reacted so ridiculously to me saying I was gay that I thought, oh, screw yous, I'll tell yous everything. So Ralph's killer had generously donated the plot of land upon which the St. Joseph's Catholic Church was built in Junee. Christopher Crawley owned most of the land in town, and he was the township's founder. He was a highly respected, successful entrepreneur, and he was a church-going Christian. I've highlighted that line. This is what I mean when I talk about living in the shadow of religious hypocrites. The massive gravestone that marks the final resting place of Christopher William Crawley and Elizabeth Lydia Crawley, his wife, still stands tall and proud today. Ironically, his wife was half Aboriginal, and back then that was highly unusual for a white British man. He was Catholic too. That was another unusual thing. It was unusual for Catholics to be successful or powerful, and it was unusual for, although being a British Catholic put you in a much better situation than if you were Irish. But to marry a half Aboriginal back then was just a big no-no, a huge no-no. But he had so much wealth, so much power. He could do whatever he liked, and he did. Elizabeth Crawley she never left the house after he died because she was completely rejected. The town just was like, nah, half Aboriginal, we don't want nothing to do with you. But she wasn't well liked by then anyway because of what the Crawleys had done to people. Ralph wasn't the only murder victim. There was a few. So there is no sign of Ralph's grave. If you go to Junee today, at least I couldn't find any sign of it, but you certainly have no trouble finding Christopher Crawley's big monumental headstone. So I'm just making a point. Nothing against the town of Junee, and nothing against the people who own Monte Cristo now. They're lovely people now, who have restored it back to its former. It's great what they've done. But I'm just making the point that in a way, symbolically, not much has changed in 129 years, and it is actually 129 years. Ralph Morris was not Christopher Crawley's only young victim either. He also pushed a young servant girl off the balcony, and she died, and the motive for that was that she was pregnant, possibly to his son, possibly to him. So hypocrites, people that go to church on Sunday, confess their sins to God or to the priest, and then go and kill people during the week, or just have absolute power and control over other people. And it's a bit like this government in Australia now, the way they treat the people that are, the worst off, and pushing people into poverty and into homelessness is murder, by the way. It is murder. A lot of those people do die. You may not see it on the news, but they die. And others become criminals, drug addicts. Yeah, it doesn't pay. Hypocrites like him, like Christopher William Crawley, are definitely not rare individuals. They were not rare individuals back then, and they still are not now. Murderous control freaks, including many who are not religious, are as common as good-hearted, genuine and empathic people. Good-hearted, genuine and kind people can be openly gay, and they can also be into things like spanking, and that's fine. If it's consensual, it's all good. A 16-year-old boy said that to me when I was, 28? And he was right. If it's consensual, that's the main thing. It's the paramount thing. It is difficult, but it's not impossible to be open and honest about who you are if you are gay, and even if you're a kinky. It's might be just as important either way, that you are honest at least with somebody. You don't have to be like me, putting it out to the whole world, but I'm that kind of guy. But you do need somebody that you can tell, but who to trust, it's really, really hard. And a negative reaction from the first person you tell, whether it's about an abduction, a sexual assault, or being gay, if you get a negative reaction from the first person you tell, that is shattering. And I had negative consequences. I had negatives on coming out about being gay, and about the fact that I was abducted, or there was an attempted abduction, and I don't remember what happened. But a lot of stuff that was in me, I know it was connected to that. And coming out has allowed me to work through a lot of bad negative emotions and problems and mental issues and stuff. It's taken years, but I am getting there. So it is difficult, but it's not impossible. And even though God's society is far too dishonest and two-faced to acknowledge anyone who is a bit different, and genuinely open and honest about who they are, they don't. The religious, the bad religious people, they don't value honesty. They see it as they're threatened by it. There are many things that society much prefers to keep in the deep shadows of its skeleton-strewn old closet. And of course it will label anyone who fails to conform as being sick or ill or abnormal or whatever, sinful, whatever, They just have to label you as abnormal. So the traditional human societies of God have all been sick in the head, and the victims have been countless. Most abusive adults are control freaks and closeted sadists who use coercion and manipulation to exploit and have power over those who they perceive are weaker than themselves, and that definitely includes children. Most predators are inclined to look for easy prey who they think are harmless or won't put up too much of a fight. And that includes homophobes that like to bully. In modern times, most abusers use political propaganda and coercion instead of canes and whips to control and dominate other people. The plight of homosexuals in Russia under President Vladimir Putin, backed by the Russian Orthodox Christian Church, definitely comes to mind. None of the abusers are as open or as honest as me, Jacob, or Nathan. And that's because they can't be. They can't be as honest. It's impossible for them to be as honest. If you're a liar by nature and you lie to have power over people, how can you be honest? If you've got a lot to hide, honesty, I don't think it has any meaning to those people. So yeah, if my resentment of today's society sounds a bit over the top to your ears, you might need to step outside your cozy little social box, maybe. It is only from being an openly gay guy in Australia and the survivor of a violent sexual crime and having some mental issues that I've come to see Australian society for what it really is. Good and bad. But the bad is, it can be pretty bad. I was never treated the same after I came out about being same-sex attracted or gay. I wasn't invited to as many things. There was a lot of weddings of former friends now. And they're now long gone and dead to me because they just completely snubbed me. And they didn't even have the guts to admit why. My sexuality became a hot topic of gossip around my local town. I only told one person, and from that one person, next thing everyone was talking about me being gay. And it was like, wow. That wouldn't be the case now. Things have improved somewhat. But back then, it was pretty damn tough. Still tough. I was mocked by some people. I was verbally bullied and literally mentally interrogated about my sexuality by one homophobic guy. And that was pretty bad. I was coldly ignored by almost everyone when I publicly begged for help on Facebook. It was like, and it was pretty obvious. Nothing. I got nothing. Even when I rolled my car and posted about it on Facebook, I got no response from nobody. And that really shook me, actually. Shook me more than the crash. Homophobic society showed its sadistic face to me through stone cold silence. I was used and taken advantage of by people, including recently, because homophobic stigma, and if people think you're socially isolated, and they think you must be desperate, well, they think, alright, I'll befriend Phil and, he'll be easy to take advantage of. Well, how horribly wrong those people were. If you think I'm being over the top, you might need to try living in the shadow of a deceptively cruel and homophobic conservative Christian society, which is what Australia basically is. Has always been. And that's what I suffered under. It's changing slowly, but not kind of. I don't know if it is. And I've had to I've had to suffer a lot. I've suffered a lot ever since I ceased lying about who I am. Society has punished me, but internally I've had tremendous benefits. You need to go through the process of being so afraid of people that you stop being afraid of the dark. You need to discover what it's like to be so put out with the living that you seek the company of the dead, despite not actually being a schizophrenic. Yeah, that's right. High functioning schizophrenic. That that's another label that was put on me by mental health care professionals, psychiatrists, and that's another a facet of this lovely society we live in. And I'm meant to care about the overall success of society and feel motivated to contribute towards it. It's kind of hard. I have no doubt that if Jesus had been around today, or Joshua, he would have been permanently locked up in a psychiatric unit. Can you imagine? I turned water into wine. I fed everyone with 2 loaves. I went for a walk on the lake. I've cured 10 blind people today. Can you imagine? He would have been forced to take medication by a super high functioning bunch of extraordinarily two-faced bloody wankers. Because that's what psychiatrists were who treated me. Absolute power. They're power trippers. And it astounded me. The lack of rights you have if you go into a psychiatric ward or psychiatric unit, your rights are gone. They are gone. You have nothing. And if you get legal aid in there, as some people did, I didn't bother, but some people did, and the legal aid people just agree with the psychiatrists. So the system's just, it's awful. And bloody wankers, I've used that word very deliberately because that's what they were. And I'd never go back to them, no matter how badly I needed help. That really put me off because they were two-faced, and that's what last thing I need is to be betrayed more by two-faced people. So yeah, you need to find out how it feels to lose your fear of the other side. And then you might, well, if you're so intimidated by other people judging you and so worried about where the next malicious attack on you or your character is going to come from, that you lie down on your bed one afternoon and beg for the spirit of a murder victim to swap places with you, then things are pretty bad, and that's what I did. But I'm glad I did, because I actually did find Ralph, I found Jake, and I found Nathan, and Ebony. And I just wanted a break. I needed a break. And that's a long time ago. And now I need a break from society's bullshit. But, yeah. Internally matters more, I think. Try reaching out to the deceased victims of what is a very cruelly prejudiced society. And its sadistic, discriminating, coercive dog of a god. Because that's kind of how I see it now. The God of the Bible, if you read the Bible, he's not a very nice character. Try letting one like-minded boy into your mind, heart and soul, just so you can feel that somebody at least can relate to the extreme depths of your pain and mental suffering. This is how I came to connect with the soul or the spirit of a murdered boy named Ralph. And I believe it was Ralph Morris who facilitated somehow my connection with Jacob Wetley. Strangely enough, there were American police cars at Monte Cristo because the son of the guy who restored the place was a stuntman. Anyway, so my connection with these kids didn't just happen. I wanted it to happen. I asked for it to happen. I prayed for it to happen. I didn't pray to God. I prayed to the universe. I asked the universe, please help me. So there was Ebony Simpson, Ralph Morris, Jacob Wetley, Nathan Breeze. They helped me they really did. They helped get me through a horrible period where I could not have felt any more disconnected from other people or any deader on the inside if I tried. So no, it isn't just Jacob and Nathan that two-faced control freaks need to be mindful of when they decide to walk all over me and hurt me. They need to be mindful of the other kids who have also got my back now. None of them have taken very kindly to being treated unfairly or forced to endure extreme agony and other unpleasant stuff, like being molested and raped, prior to their lives being terminated. And they don't take kindly to me being treated unfairly by others, whether individually or as a collective group. That's because the kids I've connected with spiritually, they genuinely like me and they respect me. Unlike most people in the so-called living world, most people have well and truly made their minds up about me and have shown, quite a few people have shown hatred for me in no small number of ways. And, silence is a great way to do it in certain circumstances. But some people have really made it very, very obvious. And all I can say is that's fine, but it may not have been super wise. So I've just done here a little bit of Daniel is 45, dead Jacob. Jacob had a kink. Phil. And Friday, 17th of February 2017, plus 45 days, is Monday the 3rd of April. So, on Monday, the 3rd of April, there were 200 reports of severe weather in the USA associated with an outbreak of supercell thunderstorms, with 37 confirmed tornadoes across various states in the Deep South, including Mississippi, Louisiana, and South Carolina. About 30 homes were damaged, with one house was destroyed in Monroe County, Georgia. Occupants were trapped inside one house. The roof was torn off a warehouse in Luverne, Alabama. Flash flooding stranded about 30 cars in Birmingham, and one person was injured when a tree fell on their car. Altogether, 5 people died in this severe storm outbreak, including one person in Union City, and that was when a mobile home was flipped over by a tornado. So yeah, that's another thing about this trickle-down economic bullshit, is that mobile homes, putting people into, when the rich are living in mansions and you've got a lot of people living in mobile homes, they're very prone, they're very vulnerable to severe weather events. And that is killing a lot of people. It's actually killing more people at the moment than the severe weather itself. The climate change hasn't really generated any terribly unusual severe weather yet, but it will if we don't slow it down. In Australia, on Monday 3rd of April 2017, a mother lost control of a car while driving along a muddy road. And it was strewn with debris. It should have been closed but wasn't. It had recently been underwater. She lost control of the van and resulted in a total tragedy. The car plunged into the Tweed River and tragically the mother drowned and 2 of the little children drowned, while an 8-year-old girl managed to escape after her mum successfully released her from the car. And the police know that from inspecting the wreckage, the underwater wreckage. The girl swam to shore before running to a nearby house to raise the alarm, and she was in a very traumatised state. So these weather-related tragedies happened 45 days after Jacob Welling's birthday, which is the value of Daniel. So I've highlighted the name. Anyway, I'll continue this. I'm going to have to make a 7-part video because I've got a flat battery. So I'll leave it there. Of course, this ultimately relates to a prediction which I think might be about some kind of natural event on the 30th of April and 1st of May 2017, probably in Australia or America, unless it's a typhoon or something like that.